Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Sports. I am Ralph Labella.
And I'm Ron Sen. It was interesting on Felger and Maserati today. Cam Neely was being interviewed, and Felger and Maz asked him how he felt that two former Bruins are in the top 5 in the NHL in scoring when the Bruins can't score. He didn't have a whole lot to say.
Yeah, they don't like scoring on the Bruins. I mean, if you don't start off playing tremendous defense, then that's not their philosophy. They want players that come back and play two ways, and both of those players, Kessel and Sagan, they felt they didn't. But how do you give up on a player who has that much talent and Sagan as a 20-year-old? That was a disaster. And as a general manager and being involved with the team with Neely had to go along with it. That's just about a disgrace.
Well, in almost every sport, you have players who are specialists. They're a defensive specialist or, designated hitter, and one part of their game's a lot better than another part. So, do you give up on those guys, or do you say they have a valuable role in a specific setting?
I mean, it's almost like Chicago the first year Jordan played, although he was a little older than Sagan, giving up on him after the first year, saying he's not good enough defensively, where he turned out to be a great defensive player. But I remember when he came up from North Carolina, that was the knock on him. He wasn't great defensively. I mean, there could be the same thing with Sagan. Sagan could be a 40, 50-goal scorer every year, and they give up on a player where they need that score, the Bruins, to win a Stanley Cup. And it's unbelievable that they couldn't work on him. As a 20-year-old, they give up for just about nothing.
Well, when you have a young player who's not very mature and you give him millions of dollars and you say, well, he wanted to party too much. What 20-year-old, if you give him millions of dollars, is going to sit home and watch film all night?
Yeah, that was, as far as I'm concerned, that was just terrible. And I'm not a big-time hockey fan. I like basketball better than hockey, but I still watch the Bruins at times. I'll turn them on. I love watching Sagan play. And I remember back when Sagan was at Bruins, he never got the ball in the puck on the open ice. Never got it like these other players because they didn't play with that type of philosophy. So it would hurt a player like him. Instead of changing, to make things a little easier for Sagan, get him the puck in the open ice where things could happen for everyone. They stay with that tough defensive-minded team, and what happens is they let him go, and the guy's going to be averaging at least 40 goals the rest of his career.
Well, we'll switch gears and talk about an epic football game last week, which we were fortunate enough to see over at Woburn as Melrose defeated Woburn in the sectional semifinals, or the Northwest semifinals, 20-19. This game had everything.
Just an unbelievable game. I mean, we were freezing out there doing the game, but in the second half, we didn't even think about it. The game was so exciting. The defense just came up huge, play after play against a great Woburn offense. They had running backs. They had 3 running backs who were quicker than any Melrose player, but Melrose just played together. They got that great outside linebacker work from McLaughlin, Ian Mercer, and everybody else. I mean, the whole team is coming.
Right. It's hard to single out individual players because so many players made key contributions. One thing that was probably underrated was how severe the wind was at times, blowing either left to right as we were seeing the game or across the field. And I think that may have even played into Melrose's decision to go for it on 4th down late in the game, because they would have been kicking into a pretty stiff wind from the 10. Ball might not have gone out much beyond the 25-yard line.
Yeah, it was 4th and a yard with how much time left? Less than 2?
About 1:47, something like that.
Yeah, and they were on their 10-yard line, and Coach Morris went for it, and we said it. I was hoping he'd go for it because, leave it up to them. They get the first down, the game's over, and that's what happened. They just got the first down, and they end up winning the game against an undefeated Woburn team who was rated, I believe, in the top 15, and now we play Concord Carlisle, who's now rated in the top 15.
Right. It was a great example of playing to win instead of playing not to lose. And invariably, when you play not to lose, you make those conservative plays consistently, and it doesn't work out for you.
Yeah, and I'm very confident that they can beat Concord Carlisle. We said it a few games ago that they can play. No one wants to play Melrose. I mean, their offensive and defensive lines are playing at a high level right now, getting great coaching from Coach Kent and Coach Morris. Both of them coach. I think Coach Morris does offensive line, Coach Kent does the defensive line, although Coach Morris is the defensive coordinator, which is kind of funny. But the defense has come along. The defensive line is playing great. They're healthy. I mean, that's one good thing. They're very healthy now. Remember, at the beginning of the year, we were worried about Zach Mercer, the outside linebacker with the bad shoulder, and then Hickey got hurt after a couple of games, the star running back. But they look to be very healthy going into this game. And I can, when you talk about identity, Ron, they have the identity. Although I'd like to see them run the ball.
Well, there were
with
so
two-back
many
offense.
plays that happened that you never see. For example, there was a play, we thought it was a fumble. It wasn't really a fumble. An offensive lineman for Woburn had caught the ball, took a couple steps, realized he was an ineligible receiver, and he literally threw the ball down. Melrose recovered, and we were able to turn that into points. 2 seconds to go in the first half, Woburn thought they'd throw a Hail Mary. Melrose was in man-to-man coverage, evidently, and the defensive backs had their back turned to the quarterback, who ran in for a score from about 30 yards. Later on, Pedrini made an incredible catch where he made a leaping catch, reaching over the defensive back and sort of pulling it back over his head. Never seen anything like that. And then, of course, the goal line stand where Woburn probably kicking themselves for not kicking a short field goal.
Yeah, the coach must have thought they had a bad angle. They would have been kicking from the right hash mark, and maybe he felt that it was, he didn't like that situation, and he was so confident in his running game that he figured, to get a yard, I think it was a yard, just over a yard for a touchdown, he'd go for it. But the Melrose defense, they're just so tough. And, you got to give credit to those two inside linebackers, too. Slavacheski and Feeney. They've come on. I said it early in the year. I said they need these two linebackers to become great if they're going to make it to the Super Bowl. And they've become great. Now they got 4 great linebackers. They've got the defensive line that's just been playing tremendous lately. Again, they're getting better and better. And then their cornerbacks, Caffey and Pizzotti, with Hickey at free safety. They're just working so well together.
Well, what irritates me is Melrose had a good chance to hold the ball at the end. Woburn had 5 timeouts. Everybody has 5 timeouts a half in high school football. That's too many. And, if you're playing good situational football, you get penalized by the other team being able to take, timeout after timeout.
But another thing I look at, me, I like to critique. Even when I'm doing a game, I like to be honest. I just like to show my feelings, what I think should be done. Sometimes I'll get on a coach, and, Melrose has great coaches, and they can take it for sure, because we compliment them 100 times every one time we say we do something different. But what did we say in the beginning of the second half when Woburn called that timeout? They didn't have to call that timeout. In a close game, and I came right out and said it, I said, this can hurt them big time taking a timeout here. They may need it at the end of the game, and look what happens. Some coaches sometimes, they're so, like I said, you need coaches for special situations. At that time, you need a coach to say, no, don't take the timeout. Well, what is this going to do, a timeout at the beginning of the second half? Where's that going to help us? We may need it. It may be important at the end of the game. But you see situations like that, and you wonder in football. I even seen in pro football with Belichick, his clock management isn't as good as people think it is. Well, that's a key run.
Well, Melrose Volleyball had a little bit shorter season than they're accustomed to. Is their streak of 11 consecutive appearances in the Division II North Final got interrupted this year as they were beaten by Weston. I'm not saying it's an upset, because Weston's a real good team. They had a top hitter in the state, and they'll be playing in the state final this weekend. During the season, Melrose they finished 22-3, and they played 6 non-league games, and 5 of those teams were playing in the playoffs in the sectional finals.
Newton North, too. They beat.
And Melrose had beaten Newton North, who ultimately defeated Barnstable, which is obviously a big upset since Barnstable's won the state championship something like 13 times.
What's funny? I thought after last season, I looked at the team last season when they lost to Bishop Fenwick. I watched that match, and I'm saying to myself, okay, they're going to be stronger in the front row. Bishop Fenwick last year was real strong in the front row. I said, but I thought the team would come together better, even though they had a great record. And I only saw one match. I saw the Lexington match, and then when I went to that Lexington match, I was surprised because by that time they had beaten Newton North and some other good teams. I was surprised that they just weren't working well together. They weren't as sharp as I thought they were going to be. and they beat Lexington. You know, sometimes you rely on, you know, okay, we have real good talent. We can beat these teams. Sometimes you rely on that when you need more.
Well,
You need that edge.
I think historically Melrose had a very strong defensive team, and they rely on keeping the ball in play and having the other team make mistakes. But when they've lost over the years, it's because the other teams had superior offenses, losing to Newton North one year, 3-2. You know, losing to the big hitters against Medfield a couple times over the years, to Fairhaven with Kara Charette. So even if you're a superior defensive team, eventually you might run into an offense that just has too many weapons.
Yeah, and even though they're losing, is it Lessing and Nolan? I mean, they're the two
Right.
players that played most of it. Any other seniors?
Sure, Amanda Kane.
Oh, Amanda Kane, she was good in the back row.
Um,
But even though they're losing those good players, real good players, I think they're going to be stronger next year because I think the back row, these young players are going to be coming along better. You know, this sophomore class is really strong that Scott has. If they keep working out. But again, I was surprised when I went to that match. They weren't as sharp as I thought they would be. So maybe they needed that one. I thought this year was going to be the year they win it.
well,
They were good. I mean, they had a real good team.
Yeah, they had an excellent
They
season.
lost to Weston, was
and,
real good.
And, you know, the other teams are working very hard, too. Weston has 3 sisters and who are the coach's daughters who, you know, play together all the time, work out together, outstanding team. But, you know, around both the Middlesex League and outside the Middlesex League, the competition's always getting stronger, too.
Yeah, and the thing you look at, like I'm talking, the way I'm talking is I'm talking about state championship teams.
Right.
He had another terrific team this year. I mean, he lost to a very good team in Weston, you know, and they beat Newton North, who's going to be playing in the finals of Division I, who beat Barnstable by 3-0. So they had a very good season. I'm talking about winning.
Oh, absolutely. And there's an old saying about love your losses, because you can learn a lot. When you lose, there's a lot more lessons that you can learn than when you win.
And the positive thing is they have a shot to win it next year. They have enough talent. If it comes together, the way I hope it could come together, they have a shot to win it next year. And that's all you can ask for, Ron.
Well, speaking of not having a great season, it's the Hot Stove League, and the Red Sox come off the worst to first to worst trifecta that probably has never been done before. And who knows what they're going to have. You know, we keep hearing about the Kung Fu Panda.
Oh, they better not.
You know, I was looking today at Mo Vaughn's statistics over the final few years of his career, because Sandoval's got the body like Mo Vaughn.
How old is he?
He's 28. But, you know, Vaughn missed almost a whole year, or did a whole season, because of
broke his ankle.
Broke his ankle. But then after that, when he was 33 and 34, or coming off 33, 34, his production went down dramatically. And Sandoval, the guy is not Alex Rodriguez. He's had some terrific performances in the postseason, but his regular season output, he's never had 100 RBIs. I don't think he's ever had 20 home runs. He's a decent third baseman. He is a switch hitter, and there's all this talk about they need more left-handed hitting. But the guy is not a $20 million a year
He
player.
reminds me of Fielder. I mean, you don't want a guy like that. You don't want to give him big money. They're saying that he would probably get $18 million a year. You know, not crazy money, but that's for someone like that. Why give him $18 million when you want a third baseman who's really quick over there at third, can handle the third base, hit with some power and run the bases? I mean, that's the type of player. Even though he's a third baseman, that's the type of player I would want. You know, I'm hoping the Yankees can get Tulowitzki or someone like him.
Well, Tulowitzki's got a fortune on his contract, and the Yankees.
Is he a free agent?
No, you have to trade
he's got
for
one
him.
more year.
I think so. And no, I think he's got more than that. But he's got a lot of money on his deal. I mean, it's something like, I don't know how much money is owed, but it's a lot of money.
But the Yankees, if they can get a hitter like him, you know, well, he's a shortstop too, that'll make that team really strong.
Well, the Red Sox don't have any number 1 or 2. At best, they have 3s in Kelly and Buchholz, and then they have a bunch of unproven minor league pitchers who, you know, they're as much suspects as they are prospects. You can't tell me that Matt Barnes or Alan Webster at this point are ready to step in and be pitching every 5th day.
Well, I think they'll add someone like Shields to that, you know, staff, because Shields won't get the big money. He'll get good money. He'll get close to $20 million for probably 3 years or 4 years. But then, I mean, the Yankees aren't going to go after Shields ahead of the two at Leicester.
Well, the owners are crazy. They pay crazy money. I'd be thinking the Red Sox are probably more likely to go after Justin Masterson from the Indians. By the way, his teammate Corey Kluber won the American League Cy Young Award.
He's a great pitcher.
And needless to say, Kershaw won the MVP in the National League. But the Red Sox have a lot of work to do. They're not close. It's not like they're one or two players away from being a World Series champion. Everything came together for them once, going on the cheap. If they think they can go on the cheap again and win, not happening.
Yeah, that won't happen again. I mean, you look at the other teams in baseball. There's so many teams that are getting better and better that a lot of those teams now have money.
Well, the other thing is the emphasis is moving away as much from starting pitching to have dominant relief pitching. If you can get your starters out there for 5 to 6 innings and then bring in these studs out of the bullpen who throw 97, 98 like Kansas City. The Red Sox went into Kansas City in September and destroyed the Royals, but the Royals had enough pitching to get them into the 6th, 7th inning, and then they'd close out relievers.
I mean, how do the Yankees feel looking at the Royals compared to their team? I mean, that's cash, and they give Cashman a 3-year contract. I mean, you know how my feeling. The worst move he ever made was re-signing Sabathia when he played out his option.
Well, then Robertson's going to be a free agent. So.
Yeah, they got to give him the money. They'll have a good bullpen. I'd love to see him get Miller. I'd love to see the Yankees pick up Miller.
It seems like the Red Sox are going to trade Cespedes. I don't know what they're going to play. They'll probably have Betts, Castillo, and Victorino in the outfield. We'll see whether Pedroia is healthy. They say he's healthy. I don't know.
Imagine Cespedes having an attitude like he has with them. They said he didn't want to work, do this, do that. I mean, you got a guy, who's in America for 3 years, from Cuba. It's been terrible. You'd think the guy would act kind of properly, but he really was busting on the Red Sox, didn't do half the things they asked him to do. They don't want him. They're going to want to deal him.
Well, Kevin Eastman, who used to be assistant of the Celtics, now he's vice president of basketball operations for the Clippers, has a saying, there's too many players who want to be on a team instead of playing for the team. And he says, entitled players don't win titles. And that's the thing. You need hungry players. Look at the Royals. I don't know how they got to the World Series, but they were, one hit away from tying the game in the 7th game of the World Series.
And you look at a lot of those Royal players, they're not making big money.
No.
So they're playing to get better contracts too. You got these guys that are making big money now. Half of them don't care. Like Sandoval, if he gets big money, you think he's going to care about his weight? He's going to get bigger and bigger.
I agree. I think as a professional athlete, you should have enough pride that you're going to take really great care of your body. You're going to eat the right things. You're going to get rest. You're going to make sure you're working out at a high level. But obviously, for many of these guys, once they get the money, that's not their priority. And look at Red Sox had a couple, Beckett and Lackey, who are good examples. Lackey only got better after he, got hurt.
Yeah, well, they say the Red Sox have $50 million to spend. Let's see what they do.
We'll be right back.
This is Chris Eck of the Boston Cannons, and you're watching Let's Talk Sports.
Welcome back. We're halfway through professional football's gladiatorial spectacle, the NFL season. Patriots come off a big win playing against the Broncos, and we're lucky to have Lou, the sports guru, to help us out to discuss the NFL. Lou, what have you got for us?
Well, first of all, I'm glad to be sitting here again because at least I don't have to sit on a phone book to sit in your seat. But I digress. What a game that was, huh? Denver? You're wearing your Denver orange tonight?
No, this is Florida Gator orange.
Absolutely. But you know something? I'll tell you what. This happens every year like clockwork. I honestly think, and this is the whole gamut right here. Peyton Manning, when you see him, he's out there gyrating, calling out things, all kinds of stuff, Omaha, all this stuff. He gives every single part of their playbook, I think, in every single game. And that's why when they get to the playoffs, sooner or later, somebody just says, okay, well, we've seen this, we've seen that, we've seen that. And then they come out, and like Pete Carroll last year, they said, all right, we've seen this before. We've seen this before. And, Seattle was a good team, but they destroyed Denver. Denver couldn't get on track because I think, honestly, that's what ends up happening. And now that Belichick's had half a season to see Denver's plays, I think he said, all right, well, I got an idea of what they're doing. I mean, Welker they destroyed. I mean, let's face it, he's had a great career. He's beaten up, and, they basically sent him off the field in a meat wagon. As far as the rest of it goes, we played right into him. We finally have two really good cornerbacks to shut down their big wide receivers. You take Welker away. I mean, Manning still put up his yards, but, Brady looked better than he's looked in how long? He was crisp, making quick reads, he was making accurate, he was throwing dots. I mean, it was a thing of beauty.
Yeah, he was throwing the ball a lot harder than Manning was. I mean, Manning was accurate. He's as accurate as any quarterback. But Brady was throwing bullets, keeping the ball lower than Manning. Manning kind of likes to throw a little arc on his passes, but you could tell a big difference with the wind and all that.
Well, it's always hard to beat a team twice in the same season, and it's still important for the Patriots to have the best record, so if they get to the AFC Championship, they can play at home, because it's an entirely different story for the Pats in Foxborough than it is in Mile High.
Well, they definitely don't have Denver's number. I'm confident that they can win, but you still have to watch out for Denver. Denver's still a team to beat. Their schedule's kind of tough, too, so hopefully Denver has a couple of more losses. If the Patriots tie them, then they'll have the home field advantage.
Well, we remember a couple of years ago, we beat the Jets 45-7, and then a couple of weeks later, they knocked us out of the playoffs. So there's a danger of teams knowing each other too much. And I think, let's face it, Manning has played against Belichick how many times? It's not like, Belichick's going to suddenly come up with this brand new defensive scheme that not only Manning's never seen before, but he's going to run it every play of the entire game, and it's going to keep him off balance. They lack a pass rush. He was creative with blitzes. I think the other day, that was the biggest thing, was the defense was creative. They really did some things that it's not like you're showing Manning something he's never seen before, but it was more about keep him off balance and make him throw to the hot read. So sure, he picks up 9 yards when he needs 11. He picks up 3 when he needs 7. And that's how you win.
Well, it's interesting when you take a player like Akeem Ayers, who has no role on a team that's not that good. They pick him up and he's playing 80% of the snaps because of injury, but still contributing. So somehow one player may not fit very well in another system, and he's perfect in this system.
And it's happened more times over the years. I mean, how many players can we say Belichick has picked up, and it's like, plug him in, we lose an all-pro, and okay, it's going to be catastrophic. What are we going to do? Our linebackers are going to be terrible. We've lost cornerbacks before. We've lost wide receivers. And he finds these guys, he plugs them in, and all of a sudden it's another success story. He'll never buy a drink in this town again.
Well, the key, too, is Collins and Hightower. Both of them are playing at a very high level,
Yeah.
all-star level, both of them. And that makes it a lot easier. And then you're using Ninkovich as a linebacker more now than a pass rusher. He had that big interception.
Yeah, that was...
But he's a smart player. He can play the type of linebackers, the outside linebacker, as Vrabel did. He's that type of player. You don't have to rush him all the time.
Well, the secondary is dramatically better. Now, you have 3 terrific defensive backs, and Chung's playing at a better level. Maybe that's because he has so much talent around him.
Yeah, it's going to help when you put that kind of talent around you, but you still got to hold your own. And I agree. Chung is playing better. And I was just going to cite Vrabel. I think that's the biggest thing is, Mike Vrabel was a backup linebacker when they picked him up. And
he used to have 3 Super Bowl rings.
Yeah.
I always wonder about that. You'd think that a guy who's a smart guy would have his Super Bowl ring somewhat safe, and if they get, quote, stolen, is there somehow some financial issue that these disappeared and he's getting insurance money, and then who knows what's happening?
Yeah, you'd think he'd have at least enough money to buy a safe or get a safety deposit box at the bank,
But, I like to talk about finding your identity. I talk to Ron about that all the time.
Absolutely.
Basketball teams, whatever. But I think the Patriots, the reason why I'm very confident that they can beat anybody they go up against now, they found their identity both on offense and defense. They're finding it more and more on defense, but offensively, that offensive line is the key. They're playing great now, and people are knocking the offensive.
Yeah, they gelled. They definitely came
line
together.
coach.
What do you think about the line with the Patriots being a 3-point underdog? Now, people were speculating in the last 3 games at home, Indianapolis has only given up 30 points. And the Patriots, despite all the hoopla, are 0-5-1 against the spread in the last 6 games after the bye week. So, I mean, does that mean anything, or is this, it just seems like when the spread is something that you don't expect, there's a reason for it.
Well, you know something, historically, Belichick and Parcells, very similar kinds of teams. They find their identity. They never find it in September. They're looking for it in September. Usually, bye week after about 5, 6, 7 games. You know, the Patriots have been lucky. They've gotten the bye week in the middle of the season. And what happens is they find their identity. They get that week off. They come back strong. But one thing both teams you could say, neither coach absolutely gave a crap about the spread. They are more than happy to win by 1 point and just say, oh, it's a win. Yeah, but Bill, you know, you guys really struggled. Well, it's a win. We're moving on to fill in the blank. And that's kind of the spread story with them. The Patriots against the spread, I'm not really sure of the numbers, but it's really, you know, like I said, I think Belichick really couldn't care less about what the team wins by. And then we're getting points this week.
Well,
So
it's pretty obvious that when Gronkowski's back and playing at a high level, that changes everything in the secondary for opposition. So you've got much higher production for guys like LaFell.
LaFell is the key, I think.
I think Dobson's going to have a big. He's going to come on too.
And he was good. He
Although
was
they're using
talented.
Edelman a lot. Well, Edelman's, of course, he should be playing all the
Edelman's
time.
a stud, yeah.
But I think Dodson's going to. He's 6'3". He's, you know, he can get downfield. You can throw it. You got more room to throw the ball if you're Brady. But you know, where he's happy with LaFell now, and you have Dobbs. You know, you have Edelman. I don't know if Dobson's going to get a true chance, but I think he could be big as this
Well,
year
just
goes
because,
on.
you know, the plain thing is they have 2 tight ends. They haven't had 2 tight ends since Hernandez did what he did. But, you know, Gronk stays healthy. You got another tight end if you want to run or pass out of 2 tight end sets. You got LaFell. He's the first guy I have seen consistently now. In the last couple of weeks, he's come on, get open outside the hash marks. Nobody's done that since Randy Moss. So you have to defend him honestly now. If you got a guy that's actually going to run a route, and you got to say, well, we have to respect that now because Brady's hitting it and he's getting open. And I mean, there were a couple of times he probably should have caught big gains. You're talking that much, but you have to. I mean, Denver, what they did last year in the playoffs, they didn't respect the Patriots offense. They didn't play them honestly, and they knew that we're just going to box everything in because Brady's not going to be able to hit anybody outside. You know, they had nobody. Now they do, and that's what really makes it go.
He has so many options. I mean, that's why you talk about identity. Brady's really confident now. He knows his offensive line has gotten better and better. They're a strong offensive line, especially when he's passing the ball. He's comfortable there now. He has the receivers. He's throwing the ball well. We talked about on our last show that people say he's 37, 38 now. I said, that doesn't matter. A player like him, if he has talent around him, his true colors are still going to come out. If he doesn't have talent around him, he's not going to look as good. But he has a talent. But the one thing that I'm a little worried about, I think everybody's saying, oh, it was a great time to have a bye week. I think it was a terrible time for the Patriots to have a bye week because who was hurt? Who needed a week off? They didn't. They've been playing their best football in 3 years. They haven't played this well in the last 3 years.
Theoretically, that's true. You don't want to stop when you're playing good.
Now, I'm worried that might hurt them a little against Indianapolis. But I feel where they're at now, I can't see Indianapolis beating them. I really can't.
Well, there's a lot of interesting stories in the league. Surprise teams, Arizona, obviously, they've got an issue because Carson Palmer injured his knee and he'll be out for the rest of the season. Although I don't think Stanton's terrible, especially when they're not a team that's relying on the quarterback to put up big numbers. And then the team that I think is a lot better than people think is Philadelphia.
Oh, yeah.
If you can put in Sanchez and score in the 40s, that's saying something about
and he's
what you have.
playing well. You got to give him credit. I wanted to know who stole his uniform the other night. Until they showed a close up of the helmet, I said, "Wow, will you look at Sanchez? He was right on."
Well, it's a different team, different players. You know, he has talent.
Yeah,
I think it's either Philadelphia and Green Bay in the NFC, and it's going to be the Patriots or Denver in the AFC.
It's going to be interesting. Seattle's not done yet, I don't think. They've still got a good
I think
amount of
they've
talent.
lost their edge a little.
Oh, they definitely lost the edge, but I've seen this enough times that early on in the season, you know, you take any team, you know, 4-3 and you write them off, and then all of a sudden they win 5 in a row, and next thing, you know, Seattle could do that. It doesn't mean they will, but
I don't think people should totally sleep on the Dolphins. They've been playing really good football lately. They always seem to have a good defense, and you know, Tannehill might be figuring it out.
Big game tonight against Buffalo. Where are they playing it?
Miami.
That should be a real good game.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, our division's not. We don't have games in our division that we can just say, all right, Let's mark the win. I mean, let's face it. The Jets, we blocked that field goal kick to win the game. They had no wins at the time. I don't think even though the Pats weren't playing as good, we can't take them lightly. Division rivals, we all know each other too much.
I'll tell you where everybody's going to be surprised this year.
What's that?
And they're going to make a run for the playoffs with Malik quarterbacking. Houston's going to be real.
Interesting.
I'm going to tell you, people are going to watch Malik quarterback, and he's finally given the opportunity. He's got a real good coach who's working on him. He's got the arm. He's been the backup of Brady for 3 years. You watch him.
That was my dark horse going into the year, just because I figured they were so bad. Their record wasn't as bad as their,
but the thing
they weren't as bad as their record.
Well, the reality to hype approaching zero is Johnny Manziel, who can't get on the field because of Hoyer.
Well, Hoyer's been is good. He
No,
was
no,
good.
he has been
Imagine
good.
that was going to be the story. Was Cleveland's going to be good, and it's going to be because of Manziel. And guess what? Go film another commercial, because what are they, 6-2, and he hasn't contributed one bit.
But they got a good quarterback in Hoyer.
Hoyer's playing well, and
But the one thing that gets me about the Mallett situation, everybody's knocking Mallett like they said he was 1 for 4. He never had a chance. How do you knock a guy when you don't? He's never had a chance, and Brady hasn't been injured. So how's he going to get on the field?
Hey, a long time ago, Terry Bradshaw had a backup that had 3 Super Bowl wins, and he never threw a pass in a playoff game. So he took the rings, but that's what happens. If you're backing up someone that's not going to get you on the field, well, it's good for us because we wanted Brady on the field. So good luck to him. I don't think they're that bad, Houston, and I think that they'll be a much better team with the talent around them. So you never know.
Yeah.
Well, coming up next, a segment on ACL injury prevention from Scott of Athletic Evolution.
Hi, I'm Scott Duggan, Director of Strength and Conditioning at Athletic Evolution, located in Woburn, Mass., and I'm here with Athletes Tips of the Week. We're going to bring you a 4-part series on ACL injury prevention. Our first part is going to be on mobility. Today we're going to start with mobility exercises that can help aid in injury prevention for the ACL. We're going to start with ankle mobilities, help increase range of motion in that ankle. That's going to take stress away from that knee. We're going to start in phase 1 of ankle mobilities in the kneeling position. Shelby, one of our interns here at AE, is going to help us out. We're going to start in the half kneeling position, hands up against the wall. It's going to be a nice, easy rocking motion. Want to cue the athlete like you're rocking a baby. Shelby's going to bring her knee as far forward as she can over her toes and then all the way back. She doesn't want to pause. Nice, easy rocking motion back and forth. She's going to go 5 reps to the front, and then she's going to bring her knee over her big toe, 5 reps to the inside, and then 5 reps to the outside. Once the athlete understands the movement itself, we're going to progress them to phase 2. We're going to bring Shelby standing up, and now because they're standing, we can get more range of motion out of this exercise and this progression. So same exact principle. We're going to keep that heel on the ground. It's very important that that heel doesn't come up at all times so that we can isolate that ankle joint, and then Shelby's going to replicate the movement 5 forward, 5 to the inside, 5 to the outside. Nice, easy rocking motion. Couple things you'll see done wrong here is the athlete sticking at one range or the other. We want to keep that constant movement, nice, easy rocking back and forth, and then the athlete picking that heel up off the ground. Want to make sure they keep that heel on the ground so that we can isolate that ankle joint. If the athlete has difficulty keeping the heel on the ground, regress them back to phase 1 in the kneeling position. That's going to help force that heel up against the ground. We're going to move on into our second mobility exercise. This time we're focusing on proper squat mechanics and hip mobility. So we're going to start out, phase 1 is going to be a goblet squat with a 1-second pause. So we're going to have the athletes bring their hands together with their elbows out to the side. We want to start with their feet about hip width apart, toes facing forward. The athlete is going to squat down. At the bottom, they're going to take their elbows, push their knees out, get a groin stretch, make sure the weight's on their heels, their chest is up, their toes are facing forward, and get a 1-second pause and come up. So Shelby stayed down there a little bit longer so we can explain it. In live time, we're going to go down all the way, 1-second pause, come right back up. During the entirety of this exercise, we can hold the athlete down in that position to correct squat mechanics or the principle of the exercise itself. So we want to make sure weight's on the heels, toes are forward, chest is up, and they get a good 1-second stretch at the bottom, pushing their knees out. Good. From there, goblet squats is going to progress into phase 2 of what we call deep squat progressions, or greatest stretch of all time. Same thing, we're going to set up the athlete with their toes facing forward, feet about hip width or shoulder width apart. The athlete is going to pause at each individual step, so it's very important that the coach controls the movements and controls the pauses. So Shelby's going to go on me. We're going to reach down, grab our toes, get a hamstring stretch, try and keep our knees locked out. We're going to sink our butt, keeping our hands wrapped around our feet. We're going to take our elbows, push our knees out just like we did in our goblet squat. Then we're going to go alternating arms one after the other over our head. So right arm, left arm, stand all the way up. It's very important that the athlete pauses at each step and they also get both arms overhead before standing up. Oftentimes you'll see the athletes rush through this, start to pick their heels up or have their chest come forward. If their chest come forward and their heels come up, you probably want to regress them back to phase 1. If they're rushing through it, like we talked about, control the pauses on the coach. So one thing you'll see commonly done wrong, athlete rushing through it, Shelby, just give them a quick little demo. Getting the hands way overhead, and that was actually probably somewhere in the middle. Let's give them like a fast one real quick. All the way, there we go. So they're not really getting anything out of the exercise if they rush through it like that. They're not pausing on each step. So make sure as a coach that you're cueing the athlete, you're controlling the pauses yourself. From there, we can progress to phase 3 by loading the athlete. We can either grab a plate, grab a med ball, and do the same exact movement loaded. Last exercise in our mobility series is going to be hip rocks. Now we're isolating that hip so we can improve range of motion in the hip like we did previously with ankle mobilities. The more mobility the athlete has in the hips and ankles, the less stress it puts on their knees in terms of the range of motion they're able to get into. So we're going to set up, have the athlete go on both knees. We want them to spread their knees as far apart as they possibly can. Then we're going to cue the athlete to put their forearms on the ground. Now the athlete, just like in ankle mobilities, wants to create a nice easy rocking motion back and forth. We're going to cue the athlete to try and get their butt to the ground or all the way back to their heels. They're going to come forward for momentum and come all the way back, each time trying to get a little bit further. Want to make sure the athlete's not sticking too long at the end, that nice easy rocking motion we talked about in ankle mobilities. If it's easy for the athlete, have them progress by pushing their knees out a little bit further. Into it, the other progression in phase 2, we're going to have the athlete straighten out their leg. Now their foot's going to be flat on the ground, toe facing forward. They're going to lock their knees out. Now I'm going to have the athlete lock their elbows out, go up onto their hands, away from their forearms, and same exact thing, that nice easy rocking motion, cueing the athlete butt back to the heels or butt back to the ground. Once they get 10 reps on one side, they're going to switch, go 10 reps onto the other leg, making sure we're getting both sides. That completes our mobility segment in part 1 of our ACL injury prevention series.
Welcome back. There's an old saying, there's only 2 types of coaches. There's coaches with talent and former coaches. But we want to talk a little bit about coaching. There's a lot that goes into coaching, and obviously it all starts at the beginning with communication and relationships. Because if you don't have the ability to get your players to perform for you, and that mostly means playing hard as well as working in your system, then you're not going to be successful.
Oh, right, and you know, we talk about that all the time. You're coaching now a 6th grade team that you just really started working with, and I'm coaching a 7th grade team that both of us worked with last year, and I can see the difference. I can see, you know, I see you over there, and I know what you want to do with the team, and I know what your philosophy is, and eventually you're going to get there. I know but doesn't it take a lot of work when you're head coach?
Right.
Tell me the truth.
Well, it's always challenging when you have players at a lot of different skill levels. So do you spend a lot of time on basics that will help the younger players or the players who have less experience and not as many skills right now, but then you're taking away from the more skilled players to try to help them develop to a higher level. So you have to try to find that balance. Now, one thing I strongly believe in is open practice. That is, if a parent wanted to be there or another relative, grandparent, if another coach wanted to be there, I don't care. I want everybody to see this total transparency. So if somebody says, Are you hesitant or afraid to see other people do what you do? No, I don't think you should be that at all. I think you should want people to want to be able to see what your program's about the effort, about the concentration and focus. Last night we did an exercise where I called the timeout in the middle of practice, and I handed the players a pencil and an index card. Didn't tell them what it was for. So I said I went over a play that they hadn't seen before, and then I said, write it down. Write everything down that you heard me say during the timeout. Well, needless to say, some of the players did okay, and some of the players had no idea. But I said, what's the message here? They said, you got to pay attention during timeouts. I said, that's the message, because Melrose has been burned in the past from people not paying attention during timeouts.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's really different from you and me, where you're trying to bring this team around to be able to compete against. You're starting off, okay, you're going to be in the B League, and you're going to work them up, and knowing you, and next year it'll be in the A League. In my group, we're putting them right into the fire. I got them playing a schedule where they're playing the best teams in the state every game. So you're not playing a team you're going to beat by 20. You'll probably never play a team that you're going to beat by 20 in this league, because you're in the River Valley A League upper division, so you're going to play the best teams twice. You're in the Metro West A League, which is the best league in the state, so they're playing those games. But my feeling with this group is we've had them for over a year now, when you count the summers. And, you know my thinking, they still need to work, but I think they're at a level now where they can meet that challenge. It may take them a few games before they would adjust to it, but they've played it. You saw them. They played against that talent last year, and they competed fairly well. But you look at it, and I push, but I think they're ready for it. You, in your situation with this group for your first year, if you push, they wouldn't be ready for it. I mean, that's the two different things. I mean, that team, they just wouldn't be able to handle it right now. But I know eventually they're going to be able to handle it.
Well, if you talk about improving, there's several ways you can improve in basketball. And the quickest road to improvement is to understand the game better. And you're not going to understand the game unless you both get some didactic information, but also some experience. And then you have to build up your athleticism. As the kind of age group that I have, 11 and 12-year-olds right now, they have not reached their peak height velocity, so that they can't really build up their athleticism yet, because they just don't have the hormonal and the physiologic background to do that. So a few of the players will be able to, but most won't. So you really have to focus on developing their skills. And to me, basketball is a game of cutting and passing. So I want people to be able to handle the ball on the run. You have to be able to dribble the ball, but I think you have to be able to pass and cut, get open, receive the ball, make moves off the catch. And that's what I want to emphasize with my group. And if somebody came to my practice, I hope they would be able to see what kind of style of basketball we're going to play just by watching practice. If you have a practice as a coach and nobody can tell what you're doing by watching, then there's a good chance your players aren't going to know what they're doing either.
Yeah, like my philosophy is to drill, because they've got to get comfortable handling the basketball, playing defense, getting up on the player. You have to go through the drills. And just talking about that, last night we had the last two practices we had. Monday was an unbelievable practice. This is a 7th grade team, and I tell them right off, there's no reason why you can't practice as well as the high school varsity team. I'm not going to say you're not going to be better than the high school varsity team, but there's no reason why you can't practice as well as them. And they went out and they had an unbelievable practice Monday. It was tremendous. So Wednesday we have a practice, and we're drilling really good, quick, getting up and down the court. So I said, okay, now I want to let them, play a little scrimmage here. So I put them out in the scrimmage, and they're not looking so well. People covering them, and they, I'm watching. I'm saying, well, some players look good, some of them are, struggling a little. So I made a decision. I says, okay, I'm going to put my 5 starters from last year up against the 5 players that came off the bench. Where, in years past, didn't matter, because the girls on the bench were as good as the good starters, and that's why we were so successful. So I did this, and I talked to both teams. And I told the starters from last year, I says, I want you to go out there, and I want you to think that we're going to bury this team. We're going to just take it to them. We're going to be in their face. So I got done talking to them. And then I went over to the other girls. And I said, listen, they're going to try to bury you here. It's your job to show me that you can compete with these girls and play with them. And it was an unbelievable scrimmage. It really was, Ron, just watching them scrimmage. They both went at each other, and it was really good to see, you know, and that's, I mean, you got to use different things.
What's different for me is that, you know, I like to think of, at the end, if you're in the peak of your profession, and coaching 6th grade basketball is not the peak of your profession, you want to be able to leave a legacy. This is what I did to help other people. But at the beginning, you have character. You need character, as I say, you need character on a team, not characters. Now, players with character make better choices. By making better choices, they establish a reputation. By establishing a reputation, they build their brand. Obviously, in the NBA, your brand equals your financial situation. You build your brand, and then you have your legacy. So, but I've got to work, I'm so far away from that, you know, in dealing with younger players, that it's kind of it's just an anachronism. It's a throwback. Growing up, I always said, what do I want to be at the end? And I have to say, what do I have to do now at the beginning to get where I want to be at the end? And I understand, when you're 11 or 12 years old, you don't ask yourself those questions.
No, but you see though, Ron, when you said about, you know, it's only 6th to 7th grade, but I have seen from a lot of girls that have come back to me, and there's no reason. I mean, you're a feeder program for the high school. Okay, you want to prepare them properly, get them ready to play high school, and there's nothing like seeing the girls that you coach play high school ball. But, and I've seen it, there's nothing wrong with this, saying this, is that a lot of the girls enjoy middle school basketball better than high school. Not a knock on high school, but there's no reason why these girls that are playing middle school basketball can't enjoy it as well or even more than when they go up to high school. Because I'll tell you, I've been doing it for 15 years. Just about every team I've had, the girls have loved playing middle school basketball. There's nothing like going to Andover or going to Peabody against top-notch teams and knowing you're going to be able to compete with them. There's no better feeling than going down to Walpole. So that's what I try to instill with these girls.
And it begins with your philosophy. I tell the girls, this is the way it is. First of all, we're about improvement. We're a developmental team, so everybody should leave practice every day a better player than they were before. Second, it's about teamwork. Teamwork, it means personal sacrifice. When the Celtics won the title in 2008, Kevin Garnett took 4.5 fewer shots a game than he'd taken during his career. Paul Pierce took about 4 shots fewer than he'd taken a game. And Ray Allen took over 7 shots less than he'd taken. So people sacrificed for the good of the team. And the third thing is accountability. And you're not accountable to me, you're not accountable to your parents, you're not accountable to your school, you're not accountable to the community. You're accountable to your teammates, to do the right thing, to share the basketball, to communicate, to help, to teach each other, you know, so that you become better players, but more importantly, you become better people.
Yeah, and that's just going to keep developing. Like you said, hopefully you have them 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. By the time they're in the 8th grade, it's going to be unbelievable. I know what you're going to be able to do with them. You have a good group there now, and they're just going to get better and better as it goes on. And you got to, you know, knowing you're the perfect coach for them, because I know how you handle things. You don't get as excited as I do, although you do when they don't play defense the way you want them to.
Well, we're certainly expecting a great season. Now, a lot of people are expecting a better season than you're going to see from the Celtics. And Brad Stevens and no Brad Stevens, the Celtics are still going to struggle this year.
What happened last night? Last night, I'm busy, right? So we had practice. And I had to work for an hour. So I come home. I'm thinking the Celtics going to be up 15. I look at the 7 minutes ago, they're down 13. I almost threw my glass off the wall. I said, you got to be kidding me. I mean, they're 3-3. This is the biggest game of the year for them. They go 4-3, a young team with a young coach, and they get dominated by a team that's missing their top 2 players.
I've read tons of stuff that Stevens has written. He has a prolific paper trail from when he was at Butler, doing camps, everything under the sun. He divided scoring into, in the paint, mid-range, layups, three-pointers. He said, you can win if you're giving up points in mid-range, an occasional point in the paint, but you cannot win if you're getting killed from three-point line or interior scoring. And the Celtics were just getting lit up from the outside last night.
Here's where I'm coming from. Again, you talk about understanding what you have to do as a team, having the edge, having your identity. What don't you know when a team's hitting their three-point shots and they got one of the best three-point shooters in basketball, knowing if you shut him down and shut Jackson down pretty much, don't let Jackson get in the lane because he's tough to stop with those floaters. You do those two things, you're going to win the game if you play it 100%. And then you go in, and the Celtics play a game like they did last night. That's why, I mean, I love the Celtics. So that's my favorite team of all teams.
Well, OKC
next to the UConn girls.
Well, OKC is missing their top two players, and they played the night before. If there's ever a game that you should win just by showing up and playing hard, that would be that game.
Do you ever think the UConn girls would come up flat for any game? Never.
Well,
they're playing Friday night against, I think, UCal.
They came up pretty flat against Brigham Young in the tournament last year.
And well, that's
They
because
won,
of the 6'8" girl.
Yeah, well, but they were still pretty flat. Anyway, the Celtics, they have some players who are doing okay. Sullinger's coming along. I think Avery Bradley's improving. It's unfortunate they lost Smart. Smart is a hard-nosed kid, and he would have, if they told him to cover somebody, he'd cover him.
It gives Pressey a chance to play a little more. You know, he's a pretty good point guard. He can't shoot for anything.
And the Celtics, they still need to lose this year. They need to be bad.
What they need is for Rondo to come out and play 5 unbelievable games in a row so they can trade him and get him out of there. That's what they need.
I agree with that.
That's the number one thing they need. For Rondo to play great and maybe hopefully they get something for him. Maybe trade him. You know, trade him to Cleveland.
Well, you know, there's been a lot of talk about that. Would they be better off if Cleveland, if they got rid of Kyrie Irving, who wants to shoot too much, and have Rondo a pass-first guy?
But the only problem they would have there, I was thinking about that move, that means Rondo's handling the ball all the time. James wants the ball. Even though Rondo doesn't shoot as much as Irving, he still handles the ball probably more than Irving. You know, and is that going to go over well with James, who wants the ball in his hands? Because James wouldn't be half the player if he's not handling the ball.
Well, and there's still issues with the NBA. You probably saw the Cleveland celebration with the stoner handshake with Irving and Kevin Love pretending they were smoking a joint, and then they're saying, no, it's National Mustache Month, and they were really twirling their mustaches. And then Blake Griffin recently had an arrest in October from an altercation in a club in Las Vegas, and he apologized for that. So boys will be boys. It's the NBA.
But you look at Cleveland. How don't people understand? Like when I knew that James signed with them, we talked about it. How do they understand that Irving and James were going to be clashing, and that Love's not a shot blocker? It doesn't make anybody change his shot. Love's a good rebounder, but he's not a good defensive player. You need a guy in the middle that can intimidate a little.
Well, if you're a real basketball fan, of course you like to watch the UConn women, but you also love to watch San Antonio because nobody moves the ball like San Antonio. I think they must get more excited by their passing statistics, assists, than they are by scoring.
You know who's coming out of that division, don't you? I mean, that conference?
No.
Houston. Houston's definitely coming out of it. They're coming out of it, I'm telling you. They're going to be the best team. They're going to win. I say Houston will go 64-18 in that area this year, and they're going to come out of that division. They'll beat San Antonio if they face San Antonio. They're just too strong for San Antonio up front. They're strong up front. Harden's probably one of the top 3 players in basketball now.
Yeah, I saw some of the game they were playing last night. Harden looked pretty good, as did Howard.
Yeah.
Howard looked a lot more in control of his game.
Well, McHale's been coaching them, and, you know, McHale was a great player. And they got other players. They have a foreigner who can shoot the ball. I mean, they're just strong. I mean, they lost. Did they lose Parsons? Yeah, they lost.
Yeah,
They
where'd
lost
he go
Parsons. They lost Parsons, but they're still real strong.
to? Some miscellaneous stuff. There was some news today about Oscar Tavares of the Cardinals. I don't know if you saw that. He had been tragically killed in an automobile accident in the Dominican Republic. And he was a rookie outfielder for the Cardinals that they really thought was going to be a terrific player. It turned out his blood alcohol level was 5 times the intoxication level, so which is not surprising that he couldn't control his car. But you know, there's all. What's beautiful about sports is it's a microcosm of life. You have individuals who are able to go above and beyond what you'd expect, others who crash and burn. So you have great sacrifice and selfishness.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to the winter sports for Melrose. I mean, you got the football team going now, and again, they have a great shot at going to the Super Bowl. I think this year they
Well,
do.
I think, obviously both hockey programs should be very
The
strong,
girls I'm really looking forward to.
right?
That girls program, I mean, not many people went last year. It was the first year they were independent from Watertown, but they're going to have a strong, strong team. That freshman class is unbelievable.
And I expect both basketball teams should be strong. If they're not, then there's something wrong.
Well, the girls, I'm predicting they definitely make the tournament. I'm just looking at the real good teams that lost a lot of seniors. I mean, if they develop as well, if they use a player's property, if Sullivan becomes a player I know she can be as a center, I mean, she's a senior now, but she should be dominating down low in this league. And that should be, when you talk about identity, that should be their number one priority in games. Go down to her low, get her going down low, and then the other players will make an easier game for the other players. But this team should develop into a team that could go 16-4, 15-5 in this league. They got some good young players coming up. The sophomore class is strong. Some good players in the junior class. Some good players in the senior class. And then they have Doherty, the freshman.
Well,
Let's see what she is. She could be a point guard.
Yeah, they have plenty of talent, so they should do well this season.
And the boys are going to be real good. They got talent there. It should be fun. Basketball and hockey. It should be a lot of fun.
I've enjoyed being with you tonight. I'm Ron Sen.
And I'm Ralph LaBella, and thank you for watching Let's Talk Sports.